So we heard a little bit there about focus, and I have a message to us here in Newcastle-under-Lyme that I've brought back from focus. That message is simple. God is alive. God is alive, and God is active. He is changing lives. He's active here, he's active at focus. God is active. And I know that because he's acting in my life. And I hope that's something that all of us here will be able to say. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with a brief reading. I'm going to have this on the screen in both English and Portuguese. And you'll see a few lines when they come up. Let's have the first slide up. A few lines when they come up will be in yellow. If it's in yellow, it's for us all to say. I was just trying to find a colour that stood out, that was all. It's a bit unpleasant looking, but it stands out. So let's have a look at this reading together, and then I'll place this into context for us. Psalm 24, David wrote this. The earth is Yahweh's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, for he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters.
Who may ascend the mountain of Yahweh? Who may stand in his holy place?
Good, you sounded puzzled. The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god, they will receive blessing from Yahweh and vindication from God their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, you gates. Be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in.
Who is this King of glory?
Yahweh, strong and mighty. Yahweh, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, you gates. Lift them up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in.
Who is he who is King of glory?
Yahweh Almighty. He is the King of glory. That's how you write a psalm. That is a psalm. What we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, for the Sundays of August, it's a short season of talks which are an overview of the Bible. So we're going to have 3 weeks looking at the Old Testament, 2 weeks looking at the New Testament, and it's a kind of hop, skip, and a jump, an overview. We're going to meet some of the main characters of the Bible, Abraham, Moses, Isaiah. When we first come to the Bible, often we find we're a bit puzzled. It's a big book. It's not even a book. It's a collection of books. So we're just going to dip our toes in and provide an overview. It'll be a reminder to some. It'll be a starting point for others. And the main thing that we need to know is the Bible is a story. It's a collection of stories. And it's the long and winding story of God's relationship with humanity and humanity's relationship with God. Some of that story is good and acts as an example to us. Some of it is sad and acts more like a warning to us. So we're going to look at this story, we're going to kind of have an overview of it, and we're going to see how it all fits together. So they'll be a little bit different from our normal talks, but hopefully they'll provide a kind of whole thing with the 5 weeks together. First, an important thing. Just because something is a story does not mean it's not true. As soon as I use the word story, some people might think, oh, that means it's made up. No. We all have stories. The stories of our lives, the things that have happened to us. They're factual, but they're still stories. And those stories tell us who we are. I bet you when you gather as a family, the old stories come rolled out again. Oh, do you remember that time when this happened? Oh, when you said that and then that person did that. And you'll hear those stories again and again and again. Because what those stories are doing, those true stories, they're telling us who we are. They're telling us, we are the people that this happened to. Do you remember that? This is who we are. And that's what we're looking at as we look at this story of the Bible. Now, this is important because the stories tell us who we are. There are other stories in our world. There are big national stories, the story of what it means to be a nation. There are political stories. There are social stories that are told and that come at us. We have familial stories. We have personal stories. But the important thing here is that of all those stories, the one where we find our true identity is this one. It's not just our personal or family or our national stories. It's the salvation story of God and his people. That's what we're going to be looking at. So we have this kind of sweep of history. Let's have that first slide up. It's a bit hard to see, and I apologize for that. But we're going from creation through the fall, the patriarchs, that's who we're going to look at today. Then we're going into the promised land. We'll then look at the kings, the temple, and the prophets. Then we'll go into Jesus, and then we'll go into the church and the new creation. So, this story that is why we are all sitting here today. Our story begins in the south of modern-day Iraq in the Middle East. It doesn't start in England. Surprise, surprise. It starts in Iraq, a long way from here. And it starts with a person. And God begins with this one person who starts a family. And this family becomes a tribe. And this tribe becomes 12 tribes, becomes a nation. And that nation goes on to embrace the world. This is the story. So the first bit of this story is a big question. Who are you? Who are you? That's the question the first man asks God. And it's the question that God asks the first man. Who are you? Who are you going to be? So God makes a man. And he makes this man alongside a woman, and he makes them for intimacy. Intimacy first with him and intimacy with each other. And that intimacy was meant to be a fruitful, life-giving intimacy. He made Adam and Eve. And they were said to be in the image of God. That's an interesting phrase in the ancient world. The image of God was, in the ancient world, something that was found in the temple of that God. The statue was the image of God. Our story doesn't begin with the temple. It begins with a garden. And it begins with the image of the God in that garden. This is unlike other stories of the time. But things go wrong. The relationship is broken, and man and woman have to leave the safety of the home that God had made for them. And the intimacy is lost. The intimacy with God is lost, and the intimacy with each other is also broken. God is going to have to work things out another way. The first lesson of this story: God never abandons his people. So man gives up on God. Murder comes in. Cain and Abel. Empire comes in. And the further away from God that humanity goes, the worse and the worse things get. Until finally God has to intervene at the point where humanity is making itself God. And so God intervenes. There's the story of the Tower of Babel that God causes to get smashed and people are dispersed. And then there's a great flood. And this is where we get Noah and his family. But despite all that humanity gets up to, God does not give up on his people. He doesn't stop calling to humanity. God keeps whispering to to those who would hear him, calling them into a relationship with himself. And one of these people is a rich man from the land of Mesopotamia, back to Iraq, called Abraham. The Garden of Eden was said to be there, and he comes from there. He comes from a city called Ur. And this city, this civilization, the richest in the world at the time, is steeped in polytheism, the belief in many gods, and the worship of many idols in many temples. And this God says to Abraham, I am the only God. This is the beginning of the revolution. I am the only God. Time for a new start. So, he gives Abram a new name. Abram becomes Abraham. And God tells him that he's going to be the father of a new nation. There's a problem. Abram is very old. I mean, very old. I don't mean like 50 old, I mean old. And his wife, therefore, let's be a little bit more polite. She's like her husband. They are both way too old to have children. So how is he in a position to father anyone? But God leads him. He says, follow me, I'm going to take you to a new land, the land that God has promised for the people that he's going to bring forth. And God leads Abraham to go to this new land. So Abraham leaves everything behind to follow this one God. And then, in one of the most beautiful passages, I think, in the Bible, Abraham is out in the desert. He and his people are living in tents, a bit like in Focus. And God leads him to look out and look around. What do you see? Stars and sand. They're in the desert. That's it. Stars and sand. There's not much else there. Can you count the stars? Can you count the sand? The grains of sand? No. That's the number of descendants you're going to have. I love that story. And do you know what Abraham does? He believes. He believes. This makes no sense, but he believes. So things go wrong, and they end up in Egypt. Basically, in this story, when things go wrong, you end up in Egypt. And despite his weaknesses and his fears, Abraham stays true to this God who's made this mad promise and led him out from where he was from. Abraham's family splits up, it grows and it splits up, and he meets some strange characters. He meets a king and a priest called Melchizedek. And Melchizedek gives him bread and wine, the first sharing of bread and wine. And he blesses him. God renews his promises to Abraham and gives him signs. And in return, Abraham's descendants are to be marked with a sign, the sign of circumcision. I suppose if nothing else, it shows you're serious about this. And his name is changed, as I said, Abram to Abraham, from the great father to the father of many nations. There's a lot of name changes in this story. You meet God as one person, and then your name is changed, and you're somebody altogether different. So one day, Abraham meets these three mysterious strangers, and they sit under a tree with Abraham. And they tell him the time has come, and a son is going to be born to his wife Sarah. The time has come. They've only got older since that first promise was made, and now you say the time has come. Sarah is eavesdropping from the tent. She hears this. Your wife Sarah is going to have a child. Right. She laughs. The child is going to be called Isaac. Isaac means he laughs. The joy of this birth, because Sarah laughed, when she heard that she was going to have a child. They have their son, Isaac. God's promise has come to pass. But things are not easy in this story. When Isaac is a boy, Abraham feels God telling him to take his son to a high place and to sacrifice him. You've made this promise. You've brought this promise to pass. And now you want me to kill this son on an altar. But he believes. Abraham is a man of faith. Just as he's about to plunge the knife in, God stops him. I do not want human sacrifice. This is in a world where there is a lot of human sacrifice. And this one God says no. No human sacrifice. He gives them an animal. The animal is sacrificed as a substitute for the son. Still, God is protecting his people all the way through. God is protecting his people. So Isaac then grows up and goes on to have a family with his wife Rebekah, and one of his sons is called Jacob. We heard the name Jacob in our reading from Psalm 24. Jacob will marry a woman called Rachel. Now, Jacob is a man of dreams, and God speaks to him in his dreams. And Jacob is shifty and tricky and not altogether trustworthy. These are not all great heroes. They are very, very human people. But God loves him. You don't have to be a great hero for God to love you. Surprise, surprise. God loves him. And together, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come to be known as the patriarchs. It's a word that's often used. Not patriarchy, that's a different thing. The patriarchs, which means the founding fathers, the starting fathers. Now, at one point, Jacob is undergoing a crisis. There's a lot of crises in these stories. And one night he meets an angel. And he wrestles with the angel all night, refusing to let go until the angel blesses him and tells him his name. The angel touches Jacob's hip and makes him limp. And he changes his name. From now on, you will be not Jacob, but Israel, he who struggles with God. You can see where this story is going. So Jacob, now called Israel, goes on to have 12 sons. I can't get my head around having 12 sons. I have one who's here. Having 12, way too many. He has 12 sons. And these sons go on to have families, and these are the beginning, the first 12 tribes of Israel. Israel's the father, these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And the youngest one, the most favored one, it's always the youngest who's the favorite. If anyone is not the youngest, they know this. The youngest one is Joseph. Like his father, he has dreams. God speaks to him in these dreams. But the brothers are jealous. If you're an older brother or a middle brother, you know this. They are jealous. So they decide to sell Joseph into slavery and convince their dad that he's been killed. They bring back the colorful coat covered in blood. An animal must have got him. Joseph is taken by slave traders back to where you go when things are going wrong, back to Egypt. But things go well for him there. His dreams help him to win favor, and the Pharaoh blesses him. He becomes an important man in Egypt because his dreams help Egypt to survive a great famine, and Joseph finds favor. This famine sweeps through the whole land, the whole area, and that means his brothers even have to come to Egypt looking for food. They come and they meet their brother who they sold into slavery, who is now in power above them. Wow. The Israelites grow numerous, and the Egyptians began to turn against them. As happens again and again with immigrants. We don't want these foreigners here taking our jobs. And it became a refrain from later for Israel to remember that they too were once foreigners. They too were once asylum seekers in need of help. This is a refrain that comes throughout the Bible. So a law is passed in Egypt that all Hebrew Jewish midwives are to kill any Israelite boys that are born. The girls can be born because they can be married off into Egyptian society, but the boys must be killed at birth. Pretty harsh. But the Jewish midwives fear God more than they fear Pharaoh. And they don't obey. And they say, we can't help it. These Jewish women, they just give birth so quickly, by the time we get there, it's too late. But they've got a plan, these Jewish midwives. There's one boy, they put him into a basket and they put him in the reeds by the side of the river. And this little baby boy's sister, Miriam, is sent to look after him, to watch over him, to make sure the baby is okay. And Pharaoh's daughter finds or is given this boy. And she names him Moses, the one who is saved through the water. Moses grows up again to be a man of great privilege, being adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. But he knows where he's come from. He knows who he is. His own mother becomes his wet nurse. So he knows who he is. And he knows he's an Israelite. And he sees these Israelite slaves being abused by the Egyptian slave masters. And one day when he sees a slave being abused by the slave master, he steps in. Something in him snaps. And he kills the slave master. Moses is a murderer. And you'd think this Jewish slave would be thankful. He isn't. Who do you think you are coming to help me? What does he do now? He's burned his bridges with the Egyptians. The Israelites are not accepting him. He goes where people go, into the desert. And he goes into the desert and he becomes a shepherd. And one day while he's in the desert with his sheep, or with his father-in-law's sheep, he sees a bush. And the bush is on fire, but it's not burning up. It's on fire, but it's not burning. And a voice comes from this fire, telling him, I have a mission for you. I want you to go back to Egypt. I want you to go straight up to Pharaoh, and I want you to tell him to set my people free. Wow. Moses says, it's a slight problem. I've got a stammer. I can't speak. That's okay. Your brother can speak for you. I don't even know who to say you are. I am who I am. Yahweh, the name we heard in the reading. And then God leads his people out. You have the story of the Passover. The Israelites paint blood on their doors, and the angel of death that sweeps over Egypt passes over the Jewish houses. And the Jews are able to escape. Moses leads them out back into the desert. And in the desert, God forms them into a people. God leads them by a pillar of fire by night and cloud by day. He gives them bread, he gives them quail, he gives them water. He gives them the law, the 10 Commandments. So in this way, God forms them into a nation. They are wandering around, trying to get back to the promised land that Abraham was promised. They get back to the promised land. 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, are sent into the land. See what it's like. Could we get in there? Are the tribes there tribes that we could win if we fought against? They come back. It's going to be tricky, but we can do it. No, let's leave it. Let's leave it. They've disobeyed God. For 40 years they wandered through the desert until all that generation is gone. And only Joshua and Caleb make it into the promised land. Even Moses does not make it into the promised land. Now that is just the start of the story. That's the start of the story. But I want us just very quickly to pull out a few points for us. The first point, God has a plan. God has a plan, and that plan involves you. This is not just the story from the past, remember. This is the story that tells us who we are. God's plan includes you. And if you are chosen by God, you are part of his plan, and therefore you are going to be different. You are going to stand out in this world. You might sometimes feel like you don't quite fit in, but that's okay, because God has chosen you. He doesn't choose you because you are great. He doesn't choose you because you're talented, or because you're lovely, or you're good looking. All those things are just coincidence, if that's true of you. He calls you because he calls you. You are lovable because he loves you. But God has a plan, and he has called you to be part of that plan. The second thing, God knows you. He knows who you are, and he will take you, and he will shape you, and he will rename you. He will tell you who you are if you ask him. And the third lesson for today, faithfulness matters. Each of those people in the story said yes to God, and God did great things through them. Don't think that your yes is any less powerful. Your obedience and your faithfulness to God matters. God has a plan, and he needs you as part of that plan, and your faithfulness matters.